Chapter 1. Damien Lancaster stared at the doctor's report lying on his desk. The words blurred together, but one sentence remained painfully clear. Permanent infertility. Natural conception highly unlikely. His fingers tightened around the paper. No. The word came out as a whisper. Across from him, the fertility specialist lowered his gaze. "I'm sorry, Mr. Lancaster. Sorry." Everyone was sorry. The nurses were sorry. The specialists were sorry. The counselors were sorry. Yet none of them could change the truth. Damien Lancaster would never become a father. At 34 years old, he had everything money could buy. He owned luxury hotels across 3 continents, private jets, vacation homes, a billion-dollar business empire. But he couldn't give his wife the one thing she wanted most: a child. The drive home felt endless. Rain pounded against the windshield as Damien sat silently in the back of his car. His phone buzzed repeatedly. He ignored every call, every email, every message. Nothing mattered anymore. The only thing waiting for him was the conversation he had been dreading for months. When he finally stepped into his penthouse, he found Victoria standing by the window. His wife turned as soon as she heard him enter. Hope immediately filled her eyes, a hope that shattered the moment she saw his face. The silence lasted only seconds, but it felt like forever. "What did the doctor say?" Damien couldn't answer, not immediately. His throat felt tight, his chest felt hollow. Victoria slowly understood. No. Tears instantly filled her eyes. No. He lowered his gaze. "I'm sorry." The report slipped from his fingers onto the coffee table. Victoria grabbed it, read it, and broke. A sob escaped her lips. Damien had imagined this moment countless times. He thought they would comfort each other, face the disappointment together, find another way: adoption, surrogacy, anything. Instead, something inside Victoria seemed to snap. Years of frustration finally erupted. "I can't do this anymore." Damien froze. "What?" Victoria wiped her tears angrily. "I can't." Her voice trembled. "I've spent 4 years hoping." "Victoria, no." She stepped back. "I've spent 4 years waiting for a miracle." Pain twisted through Damien's chest. "We can still have a family. How?" The question echoed through the room. "Tell me how." Damien had no answer, and they both knew it. Victoria laughed bitterly, a broken sound. "I wanted children, Damien," her voice cracked. "I wanted birthdays and bedtime stories and family vacations. We can adopt." The words came too late. Victoria shook her head. "You don't understand." The realization hit him like a punch. This wasn't about children anymore. This was about disappointment. Years of disappointment. Years of resentment. Years of blaming him for something he couldn't control. "You're leaving me?" Victoria looked away. The silence confirmed everything. Not because of the infertility. Not because of the diagnosis. But because the woman he loved had already made her decision. 3 weeks later, the divorce papers were signed. 5 years of marriage ended with a signature. And Damien found himself completely alone. Months passed. The billionaire buried himself in work. If he wasn't in meetings, he was traveling. If he wasn't traveling, he was working. Anything to avoid thinking. Anything to avoid feeling. The media called him successful, powerful, untouchable. They never saw the loneliness waiting behind closed doors. Never saw the empty penthouse. Never saw the nights he sat alone staring at the city, wondering why everything he touched seemed to break. Then one stormy evening, fate quietly changed direction. A young woman named Mia Carter walked into his life, and neither of them knew it yet. But everything was about to change. Chapter 2. The alarm rang at 5 in the morning. Mia Carter opened her eyes immediately. There was no snooze button in her life. No extra 5 minutes. No lazy mornings. The moment she woke up, responsibilities were already waiting. She quietly climbed out of bed and tiptoed through the tiny apartment. The walls were thin. The furniture was old. The kitchen was barely large enough for one person, but it was home. And after everything she had lost, home was enough. Mia switched on the kitchen light and opened the refrigerator. A carton of milk, half a loaf of bread, a few eggs. She sighed. Payday was still 4 days away. 4 very long days. "Mia?" A sleepy voice came from the hallway. She turned and smiled. Her 12-year-old sister, Lily, stood there rubbing her eyes. Messy brown hair framed her face. The sight instantly warmed Mia's heart. "You're awake early," Lily yawned. "So are you." Mia laughed softly. "I'm always awake early. That's because you work too much." The innocent comment hit harder than Lily intended. Mia quickly smiled. "Someone has to keep you fed." Lily wrapped her arms around her waist. "You take care of everyone." Mia hugged her tightly and silently promised herself she always would, no matter what. A few minutes later, another door opened. Jake entered the kitchen. At 16, he was already taller than Mia. His school backpack hung over one shoulder. His dark eyes immediately went to the nearly empty refrigerator. He noticed everything. Always. "We're running low on groceries." Mia forced a smile. "I'll shop after work." Jake frowned. "You said that yesterday." Her smile faltered. Because he was right. Money had been tight lately. Tighter than usual. Medical bills, rent increases, school expenses. Everything seemed to cost more, while Mia earned exactly the same amount. She grabbed her bag before either sibling could ask more questions. "I'll see you both tonight." Lily hugged her. Jake simply nodded. But his worried eyes followed her all the way to the door. The city was already awake. Cars filled the streets. People rushed to work. And Mia joined them. Her first job started at 6, cleaning offices. Her second started at noon, housekeeping at one of the most luxurious residential towers in the city. Most days she worked 14 hours, sometimes more, because survival didn't care about exhaustion. By lunchtime, her feet already hurt. By evening, they would be screaming. Still, she never complained. There wasn't time. As she entered Lancaster Heights, the luxury apartment building where she worked as a housekeeper, she felt the usual contrast. Outside was her world. Inside was theirs. The wealthy, the powerful, the people who never worried about rent. The marble floors sparkled beneath crystal chandeliers. Fresh flowers decorated every corner. Everything smelled expensive. Mia adjusted her uniform and headed toward the housekeeping office. "You're late." The head housekeeper barely looked up from her clipboard. Mia checked the clock. 12 seconds. Linda sighed dramatically. 12 seconds becomes 12 minutes. Mia grinned. And 12 minutes becomes world destruction? Linda pointed toward the elevators. "Don't test me." Despite herself, Mia laughed. Linda was one of the few people who treated her like family. The older woman handed over a cleaning schedule. "You've got the penthouse floor today." Mia froze. "The penthouse?" Linda nodded. Again. A ripple of nervousness passed through her. Everyone in the building knew who lived there. Damien Lancaster. The billionaire. The recluse. The man whose face appeared on magazine covers, but rarely in public. Mia had worked in the building for almost a year, yet she had never met him, only heard stories. Some said he was cold, others said he never smiled, a few claimed he barely acknowledged people existed. Mia didn't know which stories were true, and honestly, she didn't care. Rich people weren't her problem. Her problem was paying rent. Her problem was making sure Jake finished school. Her problem was helping Lily chase her dream of becoming a doctor someday. Those things mattered. Not billionaires, not luxury penthouses, not men who lived in worlds she'd never belonged to. Little did she know that before the week was over, her life and Damien Lancaster's would collide, and nothing would ever be the same again. 3 hours later, Mia stood alone inside the penthouse. The place was breathtaking. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the entire city. Modern artwork decorated the walls. Everything looked untouched, perfect, yet strangely empty. Like a beautiful house nobody truly lived in. Mia dusted the shelves quietly, then cleaned the dining area, then the living room. Hours passed. The afternoon turned into evening. One by one, the other employees went home, but Mia stayed. Extra hours meant extra money, and she desperately needed it. Outside, dark clouds began gathering. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Rain soon followed. By 8 o'clock, she was finally finishing the last room. She grabbed her cleaning supplies and headed toward the door. Then she heard it, the soft ding of the private elevator. Someone had arrived. Mia immediately stepped aside. Her heart quickened slightly. She already knew who it had to be. The elevator doors slid open, and for the first time in her life, Mia Carter came face to face with Damien Lancaster. The billionaire stepped out slowly, tall, broad-shouldered, impossibly handsome. But it wasn't his appearance that caught her attention. It was his eyes. They looked lonely, as if carrying a sadness too heavy for anyone else to see. For a moment, neither moved, neither spoke. The storm raged outside, and fate quietly smiled. Chapter 3. The storm outside roared against the glass walls of the penthouse. For a long moment, neither Mia nor Damien spoke. Mia quickly lowered her eyes. "Good evening, Mr. Lancaster." His gaze lingered on her, not in the arrogant way wealthy men often looked at employees, not dismissively, almost curiously. "You're still working?" His voice was deep and calm. Mia tightened her grip on her cleaning supplies. "I was just finishing." Damien glanced at the dark windows. Rain poured down in sheets. Lightning flashed across the city skyline. "It's late. I needed the extra hours." The words slipped out before she could stop them. Embarrassment immediately followed. Employees weren't supposed to discuss personal matters. But Damien didn't seem annoyed. If anything, he looked thoughtful. "You work overtime often?" Mia forced a smile. "When the bills allow me a choice." For a second, something flickered in his eyes. Understanding. Then it disappeared. "I see." The elevator suddenly beeped. Mia turned hopefully. Finally, home. She pressed the button. Nothing happened. She frowned and pressed it again. Still nothing. A loud crack of thunder echoed outside. The lights flickered. Once, twice. Then darkness swallowed the room. Mia gasped. Emergency lights switched on seconds later, bathing the penthouse in a dim red glow. The storm had knocked out the building's power. Her stomach dropped. No. She immediately checked her phone. No signal, no internet, nothing. The elevator system had completely shut down. Damien walked toward the windows. The storm damaged the power grid. Mia's heart sank. The last bus home would already be gone. Even worse, Jake and Lily would be worried. She tried calling them again. Nothing. Damien noticed. "Family? My brother and sister." His expression softened slightly. "You live with them?" "They live with me." Something about the answer made him pause. "Your parents?" Mia looked away. "They passed away 6 years ago." Silence filled the room. Damien's jaw tightened. "I'm sorry." The sincerity in his voice surprised her. Most people offered sympathy automatically. His sounded genuine. "Thank you." Another crash of thunder shook the windows. Mia jumped slightly. Damien noticed. A tiny smile appeared on his face. Her eyes widened. Was that a smile? For a second he looked completely different. Less intimidating, less distant, almost human. The thought made her laugh softly. Of course he was human. He just didn't seem like it most of the time. "What?" Damien asked. "Nothing." His eyebrow lifted. "You laughed?" "I wasn't laughing at you." "Then what were you laughing at?" Mia hesitated. "I was thinking that everyone in this building acts like you're some kind of monster." For the first time, Damien looked genuinely amused. "A monster?" "There are rumors." "What kind of rumors?" Mia immediately regretted opening her mouth. His eyes sparkled with curiosity. "Some people think you fire employees for making eye contact." Damien stared at her. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed. Actually laughed, a real laugh. The sound stunned her, because it transformed him. The sadness disappeared briefly, the loneliness faded, and underneath it all was a man who looked years younger than she expected. "That's ridiculous." "I know. Anything else?" Mia bit her lip. "One person claimed you made a grown executive cry." Damien's smile widened. "That one is true." She burst out laughing. His smile deepened, and just like that, the tension between them vanished. For the next hour, they talked. Really talked. Something neither of them had expected. Mia told him about Jake and Lily, how she worked 2 jobs, how she gave up college after her parents died, how she promised herself her siblings would never feel abandoned. Damien listened carefully, not checking his phone, not interrupting, actually listening. It felt strange. Most people only listened long enough to talk about themselves. Damien wasn't like that. And when she finally stopped talking, he surprised her. "What did you want to study?" Mia blinked. "What?" "In college." Nobody had asked her that in years. The dream felt so distant she'd almost forgotten it existed. "Teaching." The answer came quietly. "I wanted to become a teacher." A sad smile touched her lips. Life had other plans. For a moment, Damien said nothing. Then he looked out at the storm. Life usually does. There was something in his voice. Something broken. Mia studied him carefully. You loved her. His head turned sharply. What? Your wife. The words hung in the air. She immediately regretted them. The divorce had been all over the news. Everyone knew about it. But that didn't mean she had the right to bring it up. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. I did. His interruption surprised her. Damien looked toward the city lights, his expression unreadable. I loved her very much. Mia remained silent, giving him space. For the first time, Damien Lancaster began talking about the one thing he never discussed, his marriage. His voice remained calm, but the pain beneath it was impossible to miss. The doctors told me I couldn't have children. Mia's heart tightened. She wanted a family. He laughed bitterly. And I couldn't give her one. The loneliness in his eyes nearly broke her heart. For all his money, for all his success, he looked like a man carrying an unbearable burden. She left. The simple statement held years of grief. Mia swallowed hard. That must have hurt. Damien looked at her. Really looked at her. And for the first time in years, someone wasn't judging him, wasn't pitying him, wasn't treating him like a billionaire. She was simply seeing him, the man beneath everything else. The silence between them became softer, warmer, more dangerous, because neither wanted it to end. Outside, the storm continued. Inside, two lonely people sat together in a penthouse overlooking the city, neither realizing that fate had already begun changing their lives, and neither realizing that tomorrow night would change everything forever. Chapter 4. The storm continued long into the night. Rain streamed down the glass walls of the penthouse while the city lights shimmered below like scattered diamonds. Mia glanced at the clock. Almost midnight. She should have felt uncomfortable sitting in a billionaire's living room this late. Instead, she felt strangely at ease. For the first time in years, she wasn't thinking about unpaid bills. She wasn't worrying about rent. She wasn't calculating how many hours she needed to work next week. For a few precious moments, she was simply talking and listening. Damien poured 2 cups of coffee and handed one to her. Thank you. He nodded and sat across from her. The silence between them no longer felt awkward. It felt comfortable. Dangerously comfortable. You know, Mia said, wrapping her hands around the warm mug, you're not what I expected. Damien raised an eyebrow. Should I be offended? She laughed. Probably. A small smile tugged at his lips. What did you expect? Mia pretended to think. A cold billionaire who yells at employees. I don't yell. You made an executive cry. That was one time. She burst out laughing. The sound filled the room. For a second, Damien simply watched her. The way her eyes sparkled. The way she smiled without pretending. The way she seemed completely unaware of how beautiful she was. Something tightened in his chest. He quickly looked away. This was dangerous. Very dangerous. He hadn't felt this relaxed around anyone in years. An hour later, Mia stood by the window. The rain had finally begun to slow. The city looked peaceful now. Beautiful. She felt Damien step beside her. Not too close, not too far. Just enough that she was aware of him. You miss teaching. The statement surprised her. She turned toward him. What? You talked about it earlier. His gaze remained on the city. You miss it. Mia smiled sadly. Sometimes. Only sometimes? She sighed. Every day. The admission hurt more than she expected. Teaching had been her dream. A dream she buried the day her parents died. A dream she traded for survival. Damien was quiet for a moment, then he said softly, You're the kind of person who would have been good at it. Emotion caught in her throat. Nobody had said something like that to her in years. Nobody. Thank you. Their eyes met, and for a brief second, the rest of the world disappeared. No penthouse, no wealth, no responsibilities, just 2 people looking at each other. The moment stretched. Then Damien stepped back first, breaking whatever had begun forming between them. The next morning, the storm had passed. Sunlight filled the penthouse. Mia was preparing to leave when Damien stopped her. Wait. She turned. He hesitated, something she never imagined a man like Damien Lancaster would do. I have a business gala tomorrow evening. Mia blinked. Okay. A faint smile appeared on his face. Would you come with me? Her eyes widened. What? Surely, she had heard wrong. A billionaire wasn't inviting a housekeeper to one of the most exclusive events in the city. That only happened in movies. Damien, you can say no. The strange vulnerability in his voice caught her off guard. He wasn't ordering, he wasn't demanding, he was asking, and somehow that made it harder. I don't belong at places like that. His expression hardened slightly. Who decides that? The question left her speechless. Years of struggle, Years of feeling invisible. Years of believing certain doors would never open for people like her. Yet Damien looked genuinely confused by her answer, as if he couldn't understand why she doubted herself. "I don't even have a dress." The words escaped before she could stop them. For a second, Damien looked relieved, then amused. "That's your concern?" Mia crossed her arms. "It's a valid concern." His smile widened, and suddenly she realized something. She liked seeing him smile. Far too much. "I'll take care of the dress, Damien." No arguments. His eyes held hers, and once again that strange spark passed between them. The one neither wanted to acknowledge. The one neither could ignore. Finally, Mia exhaled. One gala. His smile deepened. One gala. Neither realized that accepting this invitation would change everything, because tomorrow night, someone would target Damien, a business rival with a grudge, a dangerous plan. And before the night was over, Mia and Damien's lives would become forever intertwined. The consequences of that night would lead to 3 little heartbeats. Chapter 5. Mia had never seen anything like it. The grand ballroom glittered beneath crystal chandeliers that seemed to hang from the stars themselves. Women in designer gowns moved gracefully across the polished floor, while men in tailored suits discussed business deals worth millions. And somehow, she was standing among them. Her hands nervously smoothed the elegant dark blue dress Damien had arranged for her. She still couldn't believe she had agreed to come. "You look terrified." Mia turned and found Damien beside her. Her breath caught for a moment. He looked impossibly handsome in a black tuxedo. For the first time since meeting him, she understood why magazines constantly featured his face. "I am terrified," she admitted. A smile touched his lips. "Good." "What? If you weren't nervous, I'd think you belonged here more than everyone else." Mia laughed despite herself. "You have a strange way of making people feel better." "It's worked so far." She shook her head. As they entered the ballroom together, dozens of heads turned. Mia immediately noticed the whispers, the curious looks, the surprise. People were clearly wondering who she was. Damien seemed completely unaffected. "Ignore them." "Easy for you to say." His gaze softened. "No, easy for you to do." Something warm fluttered in her chest. Before she could respond, several executives approached Damien. The next hour passed in a blur. Business conversations, introductions, small talk. Mia tried her best to keep up, but she felt increasingly out of place. Eventually, she slipped away toward a quiet balcony overlooking the city. The cool night air felt wonderful. For the first time all evening, she relaxed. "You clean up nicely." The voice made her jump. She turned to find a woman standing nearby, tall, beautiful, elegant, and not smiling. Mia recognized her instantly. Claire Reynolds, the woman from Damien's penthouse, the woman everyone expected him to marry. "Thank you." Claire's eyes traveled over Mia's dress. "You're the housekeeper." Not a question, a statement. Mia straightened. "I work at Lancaster Heights." Claire smiled coldly. "Interesting." The way she said it made Mia uncomfortable. Before she could respond, Claire continued. "Be careful." "What do you mean?" Claire's expression hardened. "Men like Damien don't fall in love with women like us." Us. The word confused Mia. Then she understood. Claire wasn't warning her. She was claiming ownership, as if Damien already belonged to her. Fortunately, Damien himself appeared moments later. His expression darkened when he noticed Claire. Mia. Relief flooded through her. "Everything okay?" Claire answered before Mia could. "We were just talking." Damien didn't look convinced. His gaze moved to Mia. "Come dance with me." Mia blinked. "What?" "Dance." The orchestra had begun playing a slow melody. People were already moving toward the dance floor. "I don't know how." "You know how to walk." "That's not the same thing." His smile appeared again. "Trust me." Against her better judgment, she placed her hand in his. The moment his fingers closed around hers, a strange sensation raced through her. Warm, comforting, dangerous. They stepped onto the dance floor. Damien guided her effortlessly. To her surprise, she didn't step on his feet. Not once. "See?" Mia laughed. A miracle. Their eyes met. The world seemed to fade around them. The music, the crowd, the noise. Everything disappeared. For one perfect moment, it felt like they were the only 2 people in the room. Then someone bumped into Damien. Hard. His drink splashed slightly. The man apologized and quickly disappeared into the crowd. Damien frowned. Something about the encounter felt odd. But before he could think about it further, the moment passed. Or so he thought. An hour later, Damien wasn't feeling well. At first, it was subtle, a slight dizziness, a headache. Then the room began spinning. His vision blurred. Sweat formed along his forehead. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Damien? Mia immediately noticed. His face had gone pale. Are you okay? He tried to answer. The words wouldn't come properly. A wave of dizziness hit him. Mia's concern deepened. We need to get you out of here. He nodded weakly. Together they made their way through the crowd. Every step seemed harder than the last. By the time they reached the private elevator, Damien was struggling to stay upright. Fear gripped Mia's chest. This wasn't exhaustion. This wasn't stress. Something had happened. The elevator doors closed. The moment they were alone, Damien leaned heavily against the wall. Mia. His voice sounded strained. I'm here. He closed his eyes briefly, then opened them again. Confusion filled his expression. I think. His words trailed off. What? He swallowed. I think someone put something in my drink. Mia's heart stopped. The realization hit instantly. The strange man, the collision, the sudden illness. Someone had targeted Damien, and whatever happened next would change both of their lives forever. Chapter 6. The elevator doors opened into Damien's penthouse. Mia wrapped an arm around his waist as she guided him inside. His steps were unsteady, his breathing uneven. Fear tightened in her chest. This wasn't normal. Sit down, she said gently. Damien dropped onto the couch and rubbed a hand over his face. The usually composed billionaire looked completely disoriented. Mia grabbed her phone and immediately called the building's on-call physician. Thankfully, the doctor arrived within 20 minutes. After examining Damien and asking several questions, his expression darkened. Someone tampered with his drink. Mia's stomach dropped. So he was drugged? Yes. The effects should wear off in a few hours. The doctor turned to Damien. You should not be alone tonight. Damien nodded. The doctor looked between them. Keep him hydrated. If his condition worsens, call me immediately. After the doctor left, silence filled the penthouse. Rain had started again outside. Gentler this time. The city lights shimmered beyond the glass. Mia brought Damien a glass of water. Here. Thank you. His voice sounded rough. She sat across from him. Neither spoke for several minutes. The night felt strangely intimate, not because of romance, because of honesty. Because all their walls seemed weaker than usual. Finally, Damien broke the silence. You should go home. Mia almost laughed. And leave you alone? His lips twitched. I'll survive. You can barely stand. Fair point. For the first time that evening he smiled. A real smile. Not the guarded ones he usually gave. And Mia felt her heart stumble. Dangerous. Very dangerous. She looked away. You scared me tonight. The confession slipped out before she could stop it. Damien's expression softened. I'm sorry. You don't have to apologize. Still, their eyes met. Neither looked away. The moment stretched longer than it should have. Then Damien spoke quietly. Most people would have left. Mia frowned. What? Most people would have called security and walked away. She stared at him. That's a terrible thing to think. A sad laugh escaped him. It's usually true. Something about just Damien and Mia. She told him stories about Jake and Lily, about helping Lily with homework, about teaching Jake how to cook because he kept burning everything. Damien laughed harder than she had ever seen. You burned cereal? He burned cereal. That's actually impressive. It was horrifying. The laughter faded slowly, comfortably, naturally. And then Damien surprised her. About growing up with a father who cared more about business than family. About the pressure, the loneliness, the expectations. Things he had never shared publicly. Things he rarely admitted even to himself. By midnight, they were sitting side by side on the balcony overlooking the city. The rain had stopped. The stars had returned. Everything felt quiet, peaceful, as if the world had paused just for them. I don't want this night to end. The words escaped Damien before he could stop them. His eyes held a vulnerability she'd never seen before, and suddenly she understood. He wasn't talking about the gala, or the drugging, or the chaos. He was talking about this. Them. The connection neither had expected. The connection neither wanted to lose. Her heart raced. Damien. He reached for her hand, slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. She didn't. Their fingers intertwined. The simple touch felt more intimate than it should have. Mia. The way he said her name made her breath catch. Neither knew who moved first. Maybe both, maybe neither. All Mia knew was that suddenly they were closer, close enough to hear each other's heartbeat, close enough to feel everything neither had been brave enough to say. The kiss was soft, tentative, a question rather than a demand, and when Mia kissed him back, she gave her answer. The rest of the world disappeared. The loneliness, the pain, the fears. For one night, none of it mattered. There was only Damien, only Mia, and the possibility of something neither had believed they deserved. The next morning, sunlight spilled across the room. Mia opened her eyes. For a few seconds, she simply stared at the ceiling. Then reality returned. The penthouse. Damien. Last night. Her heart immediately began racing. Beside her, Damien was still asleep. For the first time since she'd met him, he looked peaceful, happy. The sight made her chest ache, because she knew what happened in stories like theirs. A billionaire and a housekeeper didn't get happy endings. They returned to their separate worlds. That was how life worked. Quietly, she slipped from the bed, gathered her things, and headed for the door. Before leaving, she glanced back one final time. 1,000 words sat trapped inside her chest. Instead, she whispered only two. "Goodbye, Damien." Then she left. Neither of them knew that this goodbye would lead to 3 tiny heartbeats, or that fate had already begun writing the next chapter of their story. Chapter 7. 6 weeks later. Mia stared at the pregnancy test in her trembling hand. 2 pink lines. Clear. Impossible to misunderstand. Positive. Her knees weakened, and she slowly sank onto the edge of her bed. No. The whisper escaped her lips. She looked again. The result hadn't changed. She was pregnant. 1,000 emotions crashed over her at once. Shock, fear, confusion, and somewhere beneath it all, happiness. She placed a hand over her stomach. A tiny life was growing inside her. A child. Damien's child. The thought made tears fill her eyes. Since that morning she had quietly slipped out of his penthouse. She hadn't seen him again. At first, she'd planned to call. Then she saw photographs online. Damien attending meetings, business events, charity galas, surrounded by people from a world she could never belong to. The longer she waited, the harder it became. Eventually, she convinced herself that night had meant more to her than it ever could to him. So she stayed silent. And now, everything had changed. 2 days later, Mia sat nervously in a doctor's office. The room smelled of antiseptic and lavender. Her palms were sweating. The doctor smiled kindly. "Let's have a look." Mia nodded. Her stomach twisted with nerves. The ultrasound technician applied cold gel to her abdomen and switched on the machine. The screen flickered. Then the technician froze. Mia immediately noticed. "What is it?" The woman didn't answer. Instead, she adjusted the screen. Her eyes widened. The doctor leaned closer, then blinked. Once, twice, as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing. Fear gripped Mia's chest. "Is something wrong?" The doctor looked at her, then smiled. A very surprised smile. "No," Mia exhaled. "Then what is it?" Mia stared. "What?" The doctor laughed softly. Before Mia could recover, the doctor pointed to another tiny shape. "And that's your third." Mia's mouth fell open. The words refused to register. "Third?" "Yes." "No." The doctor smiled. "Yes." Mia looked from the screen to the doctor and back again. The room suddenly felt too small, too hot, too unreal. "Triplets?" The doctor nodded. "You're carrying triplets. 3 babies. 3. Not 1, not 2, 3. Mia's eyes filled with tears. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Maybe both. The doctor handed her a tissue. "You okay?" Mia laughed through her tears. "I don't know. 3 babies. 3 tiny lives. 3 little miracles." The doctor continued reviewing the scan. Then her expression became serious. "Mia, because you're carrying triplets, this pregnancy will be considered high risk." Fear instantly returned. "What does that mean?" "It means we'll need to monitor you very closely." Mia nodded, listening carefully. The doctor paused. No heavy lifting. Mia's heart sank. Her housekeeping job involved nothing but heavy lifting. The doctor continued. "Less stress." Mia almost laughed. "Less stress? How?" She was already struggling to support 2 siblings. Now she was carrying 3 babies. Stress wasn't optional. It was her entire life. The following weeks were brutal. Morning sickness became all-day sickness. Her body exhausted quickly. Every task felt harder, yet she continued working. because she had no choice. Bills didn't stop because she was pregnant. Rent didn't stop. Life didn't stop. One afternoon, while cleaning a luxury apartment, dizziness suddenly overwhelmed her. The room spun, her vision blurred. She reached for the wall, too late. Everything went black. When Mia woke up, she was lying in a hospital bed. Jake sat beside her, looking terrified. Mia, relief flooded his face. She immediately tried sitting up. What happened? You fainted. His voice shook. You scared us. Mia looked away. Guilt settled heavily in her chest. The doctor entered moments later. Her expression wasn't encouraging. You need to stop working. Mia laughed bitterly. That's not possible. The doctor's face remained serious. Mia, you're carrying triplets. I know. Your body is under enormous strain. Mia swallowed hard. My babies, they're okay. Relief flooded through her, but only briefly, because the doctor wasn't finished. If you continue pushing yourself this hard, that may change. Fear gripped her heart. For the first time, she truly understood what was at stake. Not just her health. Their health. 3 tiny lives depended on her. 3 days later, Mia lost her job. The building manager wouldn't even meet her eyes. We need someone who can perform all required duties. Mia clenched her hands. I can. No. His voice softened. But your doctor says otherwise. Tears burned her eyes. She hated crying, hated appearing weak, especially now. Please. The single word felt humiliating. The manager sighed. I'm sorry. Just like that, she was unemployed, pregnant, behind on rent, and carrying triplets. That night, Mia sat alone in her bedroom. The ultrasound photo rested in her hands. 3 tiny babies, 3 little miracles, 3 impossible gifts. She stared at the image for a long time, then gently placed a hand on her stomach. Tears slipped down her cheeks. Not from sadness, not entirely, from fear, from love, from responsibility. I don't know how we're going to do this. Her voice cracked. But I promise I'll try. She smiled through her tears. I'll protect all of you. Outside, rain tapped softly against the window. Miles away, Damien Lancaster sat alone in his penthouse, still searching for the mysterious woman who had disappeared after the most unforgettable night of his life. Still believing he would never become a father. Still unaware that 3 tiny heartbeats already carried his blood. And fate was counting down the days until the truth would finally find him. Chapter 8. 3 years later. Mummy, Noah took my dinosaur. He did not, another little voice shouted. You did. No, I didn't. Mia closed her eyes and counted silently to 3. 1, 2, 3. When she opened them again, 3 identical little boys were staring at each other from opposite sides of the living room. Chaos. Pure chaos. Her life for the last 3 years. Noah. The boy immediately pointed at his brother. It was Nathan. Nathan gasped dramatically. Mummy, he's lying. The third boy, Nico, sat quietly in the corner eating cookies and watching the argument like a tiny judge. Mia couldn't help smiling. Her triplets. The greatest blessing and biggest challenge of her life. Each boy looked remarkably alike. Dark hair, dark eyes, the same mischievous smile. And every single day, they reminded her of one man. Damien Lancaster. A man who still had no idea they existed. Okay. Mia crouched in front of them. Who took the dinosaur? All 3 boys pointed at each other. Mia laughed. Exactly as expected. Nice try. The boys giggled. 3 years old and already experts at teamwork when it came to avoiding blame. Life wasn't easy, not even close. Mia worked from home, tutoring children online, while Jake helped whenever he wasn't at university. Lily, now 15, adored her nephews and spoiled them whenever possible. Money remained tight. There were days when Mia wondered how she'd survived. 3 pregnancies, 3 premature births, 3 babies in intensive care, countless sleepless nights. Yet somehow they had made it. Together. Every sacrifice had been worth it, because every morning she woke up to 3 little boys who thought she was the center of the universe. And that was enough. Most days. Across the city, Damien Lancaster stared at another dead end. The private investigator shifted nervously. We couldn't find her. Damien's jaw tightened. 3 years. 3 years of searching. 3 years of frustration. 3 years of wondering about the woman who had vanished without a trace. You searched everywhere? Yes, sir. The investigator slid a file across the desk. Unfortunately, we only know her first name. Mia. That's all Damien had. One name, one unforgettable smile, and memories that refused to fade. The investigator cleared his throat. Perhaps it's time to move on. Damien looked up slowly. The man immediately regretted speaking. Move on? How? He had tried, for 3 years, yet every woman he met was compared to her. Every relationship failed before it began. Because nobody was Mia. Nobody made him laugh the way she did. Nobody looked at him the way she had. Nobody made him feel seen. You're dismissed. The investigator quickly left. Damien leaned back in his chair. Frustration burned inside him. He should have forgotten her by now. Instead, he remembered everything. The storm, the laughter, the conversation, the goodbye he never got to answer. Saturday morning arrived, bright and sunny. Mia decided the boys needed fresh air. Mummy, park, park, park. The chant continued all the way there. By the time they arrived, Mia was already exhausted. The triplets raced toward the playground. 3 tiny tornadoes in matching blue shirts. Mia sat on a nearby bench, keeping a careful eye on them. For once, everything felt peaceful, until she heard it. A familiar voice, deep, confident, impossible to forget. Her entire body froze. No. Slowly, she turned, and her heart stopped. He was standing near the playground entrance talking on his phone. Older, more handsome, more powerful, yet exactly the same. Mia's pulse thundered. After 3 years, he was here. Of all the parks in the city, of all the places. Why here? Why now? Before she could decide what to do, Noah spotted a ball rolling across the grass. With a delighted laugh, he chased after it. Straight toward Damien. Noah! Mia jumped to her feet. Too late. The little boy crashed directly into Damien's leg. The phone slipped from Damien's hand. Noah immediately looked up. Oh, Damien looked down, and froze. The world seemed to stop. For several seconds neither moved, neither spoke, because Damien was staring at the little boy's face. The same dark eyes, the same dark hair, the same features he saw every morning in the mirror. His heart skipped. Impossible. Noah grinned. Sorry, mister. Damien couldn't speak. His gaze remained locked on the child. The resemblance was impossible to ignore. Uncanny, unsettling, almost identical. Then Noah smiled, and Damien's stomach dropped, because that smile looked exactly like his. Mummy! Noah suddenly shouted. Damien's head turned automatically, and his world shattered. Mia was running toward them. Their eyes met. Shock exploded across both faces. 3 years disappeared in an instant. Mia. Her name escaped his lips like a prayer, and for the first time since she vanished, Damien Lancaster found the woman he'd never stopped searching for. Chapter 9. Mia. Damien said her name as though he couldn't quite believe she was real. For a moment, neither of them moved. The sounds of children playing faded into the background. 3 years. 3 years since she had disappeared without a word. 3 years of searching. 3 years of unanswered questions. And now she was standing right in front of him. Mia? Noah tugged on her hand. Do you know this man? She forced a smile. Sweetheart, why don't you go back to the playground? Noah frowned. But, please. Something in her voice made him obey. He ran off. Unfortunately, he wasn't running alone. 2 more little boys suddenly came racing across the grass. Mummy, look what I found. Mummy, Noah cheated. The boys stopped beside her, and Damien's entire body went rigid. 1 child had looked familiar. 3 looked impossible. The same dark hair, the same eyes, the same smile, the same face. His face. The world tilted beneath his feet. What? His voice barely worked. The boys looked up at him curiously. Nico pointed. He looks like Noah. Nathan gasped dramatically. He does. Noah returned and stared at Damien, then at his brothers, then back at Damien. The little boy's eyes widened. Mummy. Mia closed her eyes. She had dreaded this moment for years. Years. And now it was happening in the middle of a public park. Mummy, Noah repeated excitedly. He looks like us. Damien's heart slammed against his ribs. He looked at Mia. She couldn't meet his eyes. And in that moment, he knew. Not for certain. Not yet. But deep inside he knew. The impossible truth was staring him in the face. Who are they? His voice sounded rough. Dangerously rough. Mia swallowed hard. My sons. The answer only made things worse, because Damien couldn't stop staring. Every feature, every expression, every smile. It was like looking at childhood versions of himself. The silence stretched painfully. Finally, Nathan tugged on Mia's sleeve. "Mummy, are we in trouble?" The innocent question broke the tension. Mia immediately crouched down. "No, sweetheart." The boys relaxed. Damien watched the interaction, the tenderness, the love, the fierce protectiveness in her eyes. She adored them. There was no doubt about that. And suddenly another realization struck him. She had raised them alone, for 3 years, without him, without help, without telling him. The thought hurt more than it should have. "Mia," his voice was quieter now. "We need to talk." Fear flashed across her face. For a second, Damien thought she might run. Again. Instead, she nodded slowly. An hour later, the triplets were safely at home with Jake and Lily. Mia sat across from Damien in a small cafe. The contrast between them felt even sharper now. Her simple clothes, his tailored suit, her modest life, his empire. Neither touched their drinks. Neither knew where to begin. Finally, Damien broke the silence. "Why?" The single word carried years of pain. Mia looked down. "It wasn't that simple." "Then explain it to me." His voice wasn't angry. That somehow made it worse. Mia took a deep breath. "I found out I was pregnant a few weeks after that night." Damien's jaw tightened. "And you didn't tell me." "I tried." His eyes snapped to hers. "What?" "I tried." Tears gathered in her eyes. "I called your office." He froze. "You did?" "They told me you were busy." Her voice shook. "I left messages." Damien's stomach dropped. No messages had ever reached him. Not one. Mia laughed bitterly. "Then I saw pictures of you with Claire." His expression darkened. "Claire and I were never together. I know that now." Silence filled the table. Years of misunderstandings sitting between them. Years that could never be returned. Then Damien asked the question that mattered most. The boys. Mia's hands trembled. His heart pounded. Neither wanted to say it. Neither could avoid it. "Are they mine?" The words hung in the air. Heavy. Life-changing. Terrifying. Mia slowly looked up. Tears slipped down her cheeks. And then she whispered the truth. "Yes." The world stopped. Damien couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Couldn't move. For years, doctors had told him he would never be a father. For years he believed it, built his life around it, accepted it. Yet somewhere along the way, fate had laughed at everyone, because he wasn't the father of one child, or even two. He was the father of 3. 3 little boys, 3 miracles, 3 sons. Emotion crashed through him so violently that he couldn't speak. Mia watched silently, waiting, terrified. Then Damien did something she never expected. He laughed. A broken, emotional laugh, and suddenly tears filled his eyes. "I have sons." His voice cracked. The words sounded unbelievable, almost sacred. "I have sons." For the first time in years, Damien Lancaster looked genuinely happy, and for the first time since she'd left him, Mia allowed herself to hope. Maybe. Just maybe. Chapter 10. Damien barely slept that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw 3 little faces, 3 boys. His boys. For years, he had accepted the doctor's verdict. Infertile, unable to father children. A man who would never hear a child call him dad. Yet now everything he believed about his life had been turned upside down, and for the first time in years, he couldn't stop smiling. The next afternoon, Damien stood outside Mia's apartment building holding 3 gift bags. He felt ridiculous, nervous, excited, terrified, all at the same time. The billionaire who negotiated billion-dollar deals without blinking was suddenly afraid of meeting 3 4-year-olds. The apartment door opened. Mia appeared. For a moment, neither spoke. Things felt different now. The secret was out. The truth stood between them. Then a tiny voice shouted from inside, "Mummy!" The sound of running feet followed. 3 little boys burst into the hallway. They stopped when they saw Damien. Noah tilted his head. "It's the park man." Nathan pointed. He came back. Nico studied him carefully. The youngest was always the quietest, the observer, the thinker. Damien crouched down, suddenly unsure of what to say. "Hi." The boys stared. Then Noah asked the question, "Why are you here?" Mia looked horrified. Damien nearly laughed. The kid went straight to the point. "I wanted to see you." Nathan narrowed his eyes. "Why?" "Because I'm your father." The words sat in Damien's throat, but he couldn't say them yet. Not like this. Not without preparation. Not without giving them time. So instead, He lifted the gift bags. I brought presents. 3 sets of eyes widened. Instant success. An hour later, the living room looked like a toy store explosion. The triplets sat on the floor, surrounded by race cars, dinosaurs, puzzles, and stuffed animals. Mia watched from the kitchen. A smile tugged at her lips. The boys were happy, truly happy. And Damien, he looked happier than she'd ever seen him. Nathan was explaining dinosaur facts. Noah was showing off his race car. Nico sat quietly beside Damien reading a picture book. The sight made something ache inside her chest. For 3 years she had imagined this moment, wondered what kind of father Damien would be. Now she had her answer. A good one. A very good one. "Mummy," Mia looked up. Noah stood beside her. "Can I ask something?" "Of course." The little boy glanced toward Damien, then lowered his voice. "Is he our daddy?" Mia froze. Her heart stopped. Children noticed everything, even when adults thought they didn't. She knelt in front of him. "Why do you ask?" Noah shrugged. "Because he looks like us." Before Mia could answer, Nathan appeared. "So do I." Nico followed. "We all think it." Mia stared at them. 3 curious little faces, waiting, hoping, and suddenly she realized she couldn't keep the truth from them forever. Not anymore, not now. She looked toward Damien. Their eyes met, and somehow he understood immediately. A silent conversation passed between them. "Not today. Soon, but not today." Damien nodded. Mia turned back to the boys. "Let's talk about it soon, okay?" The triplets exchanged looks, then surprisingly accepted the answer. For now. Later that evening, Damien was helping Noah build a toy garage when the doorbell rang. Mia frowned. She wasn't expecting anyone. She opened the door and nearly dropped the tray in her hands. Victoria Lancaster stood there, elegant, beautiful, and completely shocked. For several seconds, neither woman spoke. Then Victoria's gaze shifted, straight into the apartment. Straight toward Damien. Straight toward the boys. Her face went pale. 1, 2, 3 identical little boys. The color drained from her face. "No," the whisper escaped before she could stop it. Damien stood. His expression hardened instantly. Victoria. She barely heard him. Her eyes remained locked on the children. The resemblance was impossible to miss. The same eyes, the same smile, the same features. Her knees nearly gave way. "No," this time louder. The triplets stared at the strange woman, confused, curious. Victoria looked at Damien, then the boys, then Damien again, and suddenly she understood. The impossible truth crashed into her. The man she divorced because he supposedly couldn't have children had 3 sons. 3. Tears filled her eyes, not from happiness, from shock, from guilt, from a secret she had buried years ago, a secret that was about to destroy everything, because Victoria knew something nobody else did, something that would change Damien's life forever. Chapter 11. The room was silent. Victoria stood frozen near the doorway, staring at the triplets. The boys stared right back. Nathan finally broke the silence. "Why is she looking at us like that?" Noah nodded. "It's weird." Nico simply hid behind Damien's leg. The innocent comment snapped everyone back to reality. Damien's expression hardened. "Victoria, what are you doing here?" She swallowed. For the first time since Mia had met her, Victoria looked nervous, truly nervous. "I need to talk to you." Damien's jaw tightened. "Not here." Victoria's eyes moved to the boys again, and something that looked like guilt flashed across her face. A deep, painful guilt. The next morning, Damien sat in a private laboratory. Mia sat beside him. Neither spoke much. The triplets had already provided their DNA samples. Now all that remained was waiting. The boys didn't fully understand what was happening. They only knew the park man seemed very important. Damien glanced at Mia. She looked nervous, so was he. Not because he doubted the truth. Deep down he already knew. The boys were his. He felt it every time he looked at them. Every smile, every expression, every stubborn little argument. They were his sons. But this test would make it official, permanent, real. The laboratory door opened. A technician entered carrying a folder. Damien immediately stood. The room felt smaller, hotter. The technician smiled. "Mr. Lancaster." His heart pounded. "The results are conclusive." Mia reached for his hand without thinking. Neither noticed. Neither pulled away. The technician opened the folder, then spoke the words that changed everything. There is a 99.99% probability that you are the biological father of all 3 children. Silence. Absolute silence. Damien stopped breathing. For a moment, the world disappeared. 3 sons. Not a dream, not hope, not possibility. Reality. His eyes filled with tears. Actual tears, the kind he hadn't allowed himself to shed in years. He laughed softly, a broken, emotional sound. Then he looked at Mia. And for the first time since they reunited, all the walls between them disappeared. Thank you. Her eyes widened. For what? For giving them life. Tears rolled down Mia's cheeks, because for 3 years she had carried this burden alone, and now she finally wasn't alone anymore. That afternoon, Damien invited Victoria to his penthouse. The DNA results sat on the coffee table. Undeniable proof. Victoria stared at them silently, then she began crying. Not softly, not politely, she broke. Completely. Damien watched her, confused, frustrated, angry. What aren't you telling me? Victoria covered her face. For several seconds she couldn't speak. Then finally, the infertility diagnosis. Damien wept still. What about it? Victoria looked up. Tears streamed down her cheeks. It wasn't real. The world stopped. Damien stared. What? Her voice shook violently. His heart slammed against his ribs. What are you talking about? Victoria closed her eyes, ashamed, broken, terrified. The doctor. She swallowed hard. I paid him. Silence exploded through the room. Damien simply stared, unable to process the words, unable to understand. What did you say? Victoria began sobbing again. I paid him. The room seemed to spin. For years he had believed he was infertile. For years he had mourned children he thought he could never have. For years he had hated himself. And now? It was a lie? His voice sounded deadly calm. The most dangerous kind of calm. Victoria nodded, tears falling faster. Why? The question came out as a whisper. Because he genuinely couldn't understand. Why would someone do something so cruel? Victoria's shoulders shook. I was scared. Scared of what? She looked away. The shame on her face said everything. There was someone else. The confession hit like a bomb. Damien froze. What? I met someone. Her voice cracked. Months before the divorce. The room went silent again. Every piece of the puzzle suddenly clicked into place. The fights, the distance, the resentment, the sudden decision to leave. Victoria wiped her tears. I knew if you found out, you'd never let me go without a fight. Damien laughed bitterly. A painful sound. So you convinced me I couldn't have children. Victoria lowered her head. I thought it would be easier. Easier? His voice rose for the first time. Years of pain exploded from inside him. You destroyed my life. She flinched. You made me believe I was broken. More tears fell. I know. You made me believe I could never be a father. Victoria couldn't look at him. Because there was no defense, no excuse, no justification. Only guilt. Only shame. Only regret. Damien turned away. His chest felt tight. Too tight. For years he had carried a wound that never should have existed. And now, because of Mia and the boys, he finally knew the truth. He wasn't broken. He never had been. He was a father. A father of 3 incredible little boys. And nobody could take that away from him. Not anymore. Not ever again. As Victoria quietly left the penthouse, Damien stared out at the city skyline. His phone buzzed. A photo appeared on the screen. The triplets. All 3 smiling. All 3 waiting for him to come visit. Slowly, a smile appeared on his face. Because the past no longer mattered. His future was waiting for him. And for the first time in years, Chapter 12. For the first time in years, Damien Lancaster felt whole. Not because of his companies. Not because of his wealth. Not because of his success. Because of 3 little boys who called him every morning just to tell him what they had eaten for breakfast. Dad! The word still caught him off guard. A week after the DNA results, Mia and Damien had sat down with the triplets and explained everything in the simplest way possible. To everyone's surprise, the boys had accepted it immediately. Noah thought it was amazing. Nathan had asked if being a dad came with superpowers. Nico simply climbed into Damien's lap and announced, I knew it. Since then, Damien had spent every spare moment with them, building forts, reading bedtime stories, learning which child hated vegetables, which one feared thunderstorms, which one secretly slept with a stuffed dinosaur. He was making up for lost time, and he intended to make every second count. One evening, Damien arrived at Mia's apartment carrying pizza. The triplets attacked him before he even reached the door. Dad! 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 Mia leaned against the kitchen counter watching the chaos. A smile tugged at her lips. She had never seen anyone love her boys the way Damien did. Not because he had to, because he genuinely wanted to. The sight warmed her heart and terrified her, because the more she let him in, the more she had to lose. Unfortunately, happiness never lasts long without someone trying to destroy it. The next morning, Damien arrived at his office to find reporters gathered outside. Hundreds of them, cameras flashing, microphones everywhere. The moment he stepped out of the car, they rushed forward. "Mr. Lancaster, is it true you have 3 secret children? Did your ex-wife fake your infertility diagnosis? Are you marrying Mia Carter?" His expression darkened. How did they know? Only a handful of people had known the truth. Yet somehow the story had leaked, and now it was everywhere. By lunchtime, every news outlet in the country was reporting the story. Billionaire secret triplets exposed. Fake infertility scandal rocks Lancaster empire. Housekeeper gave billionaire the family he thought he'd never have. Mia nearly dropped her phone. The headlines were everywhere. Television, social media, news websites, everywhere. Her stomach twisted. The boys were too young to understand, but someday they would, and she hated that strangers were talking about her children. Things got worse 2 days later. Damien was reviewing contracts when his head of security entered his office, looking grim, immediately grim. "What happened?" The security chief placed a folder on the desk. "We've received threats." Damien's expression hardened. "What kind of threats?" "Anonymous." The man opened the folder. Several printed messages stared back. "They should have stayed hidden. Your perfect family won't last." A cold rage settled inside Damien. Not fear, rage. Nobody threatened his sons. Nobody. That night, Damien went directly to Mia's apartment. She opened the door and immediately knew something was wrong. "What happened?" Without a word, he handed her the folder. As she read the messages, the color drained from her face. "No," the whisper escaped her lips. "The boys? They're safe." Damien stepped closer, his voice firm, steady, protective. "They will stay safe." Mia looked up. Fear filled her eyes. For years she had protected the triplets alone, and she hated how helpless she felt. Damien gently took her hand. The simple gesture steadied her. "We'll get through this." Mia wanted to believe him. She really did. But fear lingered. Because this wasn't about money, or business, or reputation. This was about her children. The next morning, Damien made a decision, a big one, a life-changing one. He arrived at Mia's apartment, carrying legal documents. She frowned. "What is this?" He sat across from her, then slid the papers forward. Mia opened them. Her eyes widened. "Damien." The documents transferred ownership of a large house into a trust for the boys. A beautiful home. Safe. Secure. Enough space for everyone. "You're moving in." She stared. "What?" "The threats are getting worse." His gaze never left hers. "I can protect you better if we're together." Her heart skipped. The words sounded dangerously close to something else. Something neither of them had fully admitted yet. "Damien, I'm serious." For a moment, neither spoke. Then little footsteps echoed through the hallway. The triplets appeared. Still sleepy, still adorable. "Dad?" Noah rubbed his eyes. "Are you staying for breakfast?" Damien smiled. "Of course." 3 cheers immediately followed. Mia watched the scene unfold. The laughter, the happiness, the family they had accidentally become. And for the first time, she stopped fighting it. Maybe this wasn't temporary. Maybe this wasn't a mistake. Maybe fate had brought Damien back for a reason. Because when she looked at him surrounded by their sons, she realized something that scared her more than anything. She wasn't falling in love with Damien Lancaster. She was already there. Chapter 13. The new house should have felt like a fresh start. It was beautiful, large enough for the triplets to have their own rooms, safe enough to give Mia peace of mind, and for the first time in years, she wasn't carrying every burden alone. Yet the threats continued. Every few days, a new anonymous message arrived. "You don't deserve this family. Everything can be taken away. Watch what happens next." Each message made Mia more anxious. Each message made Damien more determined. Whoever was behind this wasn't just trying to scare them. They were obsessed, and obsession was dangerous. One afternoon, Damien's security team finally got a breakthrough. Ethan rushed into Damien's office. "We found them." Damien immediately stood. "Who?" Ethan placed a file on the desk. The answer stunned him. Richard Kane, one of Damien's former business partners, a man he'd fired 2 years earlier for fraud. Richard had lost everything after the scandal. His company, his reputation, his fortune. and apparently he blamed Damien. He leaked the story to the press, Ethan explained. He sent the threats. Damien's jaw tightened. What does he want? Ethan's expression darkened. Revenge. That evening, Damien increased security around the house. Extra guards, additional cameras, everything. But he still felt uneasy. Because people seeking revenge didn't always act logically. And Richard Kane had already proven he was desperate. 3 days later, Mia picked the boys up from preschool. The triplets ran ahead toward the car, laughing, arguing, being themselves. Everything seemed normal, until a black SUV pulled up beside the sidewalk. Too fast, too suddenly, Mia's instincts screamed. Something was wrong. The rear door opened. A man stepped out. Not a security guard, not a parent. A stranger. "Mummy!" Noah's frightened voice cut through the air. Mia reacted instantly. "Get behind me." The boys obeyed immediately. The stranger moved forward, then stopped. Because another vehicle screeched to a halt. Damien's security team. Within seconds, the man was surrounded. He tried to run, failed, and was tackled to the ground. The triplets burst into tears. Mia pulled them into her arms, shaking, terrified. The realization hit her like a truck. This wasn't just harassment anymore. Someone had tried to take her children. When Damien arrived minutes later, he found Mia crying while holding all 3 boys. The sight nearly destroyed him. What happened? His voice was deadly calm, the kind of calm that came before a storm. The head of security explained everything. By the time he finished, Damien's hands were clenched into fists. Someone had come after his sons. His sons. The boys he'd only recently found. The boys he'd spent years unknowingly missing. A cold fury settled inside him. Richard Kane had crossed a line, one he could never come back from. That night, Richard Kane was arrested. The evidence against him was overwhelming. The threats, the stalking, the attempted abduction, everything. His revenge was over. His freedom was over. And his obsession with destroying Damien's life had finally destroyed his own. For the first time in weeks, the house felt peaceful again. The triplets slept soundly upstairs. The danger was gone. The nightmare was over. Mia stood on the balcony, looking at the stars. Relief washed through her. Then she felt Damien step beside her. Neither spoke for a moment. The silence felt comfortable, safe. Finally, Damien turned toward her. "I almost lost you." His voice was quiet, raw, honest. Mia looked up. "You didn't. I could've." His eyes held hers, and for the first time, she saw just how terrified he'd been. Not for himself, for her, for the boys, for their family. The realization made her chest ache. Damien. He took her hand. "I spent 3 years searching for you." Her breath caught. "When I found out about the boys, I thought that was the miracle." His thumb brushed gently across her skin, but it wasn't. Mia's heart raced. Then what was? A small smile appeared on his face. "You." The world seemed to stop. Every fear, every doubt, every wall she'd built over the years, they all crumbled, because she knew he meant it. Not the billionaire, not the businessman, just Damien. The man she'd fallen in love with. The father of her children. The man who had finally found his way home. And for the first time, Mia allowed herself to believe in forever. Chapter 14. Life finally became quiet. No threats, no scandals, no secrets. Just family. The kind of ordinary happiness Mia had spent years dreaming about. Saturday mornings filled with pancakes and cartoons. Bedtime stories with 3 energetic little boys climbing all over their father. Movie nights that somehow ended with everyone asleep on the couch. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs, and Damien cherished every moment. One evening, Mia stood in the kitchen helping Noah decorate cookies. Or at least attempting to. Most of the frosting somehow ended up on Noah's face. "Mummy, I'm an artist." Mia laughed. "I can see that." Nathan ran into the kitchen. "Dad burned dinner." Mia blinked. "What?" Nico appeared behind him. "Dad really burned dinner." The boys burst into laughter. A second later, Damien entered carrying a smoking pan. I refused to discuss what happened. The triplets laughed even harder. Mia couldn't stop smiling. For years she had been surviving. Now she was living. There was a difference, a huge difference, and Damien was a big part of it. Later that night, after the boys were asleep, Damien sat alone on the patio, thinking, planning, trying not to panic, which was difficult, because tomorrow he intended to do something terrifying. More terrifying than business deals, more terrifying than board meetings, more terrifying than public speaking. He was going to propose. The next afternoon, Damien invited Mia and the boys to the botanical gardens. The triplets loved it immediately. Flowers, butterflies, ponds, endless places to explore. The boys ran ahead with Lily and Jake, leaving Damien and Mia walking alone. The afternoon sun warmed their skin. Everything felt peaceful, perfect, almost too perfect. Mia noticed Damien seemed nervous, very nervous, which made absolutely no sense. This was a man who commanded rooms full of powerful executives. "What are you hiding?" His eyes widened. "What? You've been acting strange all day." Damien laughed, a nervous laugh that definitely confirmed her suspicions. "You're terrible at secrets." "So I've been told." They continued walking until they reached a small garden surrounded by white roses. The scent filled the air. Birds chirped softly nearby, and suddenly Damien stopped. Completely. Mia frowned. "Damien?" He turned toward her, and then he dropped to one knee. The world froze. Her heart stopped. Actually stopped. "Oh my God." Damien pulled out a small velvet box. Inside sat a breathtaking diamond ring. But Mia barely saw it, because she couldn't stop looking at him. The man she loved. The father of her children. The man fate had somehow given back to her. Mia Carter. His voice shook slightly. The sight nearly made her cry. "I spent years believing I would never have a family." Tears filled her eyes. "I spent years believing I was broken." His gaze never left hers. "Then you walked into my life. You gave me 3 incredible sons." His smile softened. "You gave me hope." Another tear followed. "You gave me a home." Mia covered her mouth, trying unsuccessfully not to cry. "You gave me everything." Damien took a deep breath, then asked the question, "Will you marry me?" Silence. Beautiful, terrifying silence. For one brief moment, all Mia could think about was the past. The years alone. The fear. The struggles. The heartbreak. What if something went wrong? What if she lost all of this? What if she trusted him completely and ended up broken? Damien seemed to read her thoughts. Because instead of pushing, he spoke softly. "If you're scared, I understand." Her eyes met his. "I am scared." He nodded. "So am I." The honesty surprised her. "You are?" Damien laughed quietly. "Mia, you and the boys are the most important thing in my life." His voice cracked slightly. "Losing you terrifies me." The confession shattered her final wall. Because love wasn't the absence of fear. It was choosing someone despite it. And Damien had chosen her every single day since finding her again. Just as she had chosen him. A laugh escaped through her tears. Then she nodded, once, twice, again. "Yes." Damien blinked. "What?" Mia laughed harder. "Yes, Damien." The relief on his face was immediate. Overwhelming. Beautiful. He slipped the ring onto her finger, then pulled her into his arms. Just as the triplets appeared. "Dad, Mummy." The boys raced toward them, stopping abruptly when they noticed Mia crying. Noah looked horrified. "Did Dad make you sad?" Nathan gasped. "Dad, what did you do?" Nico folded his arms. "We trusted you." Damien burst out laughing either. "No, sweethearts." She held up her hand. The ring sparkled in the sunlight. The boys stared, confused. Then Noah pointed. "Shiny." Nathan nodded, "Very shiny." Nico looked at Damien, then at Mia. Then smiled. "Oh." Everyone stared. "Oh what?" Damien asked. Nico grinned. "You're getting married." Silence. Then the entire family burst into laughter, because somehow the youngest had figured it out first. And for the first time in a very long time, everything felt exactly right. Chapter 15. The morning of the wedding arrived bright and beautiful. Sunlight poured through the windows of the Lancaster estate. Birds sang outside, flowers decorated every corner. Everything was perfect. Almost. Inside her bridal suite, Mia stared at her reflection. The white dress fit perfectly. Her hair was pinned elegantly. The engagement ring sparkled on her finger. Yet her hands still trembled. "You look beautiful." Mia turned. Lily stood in the doorway. Now 18, she looked more grown up than ever. Tears filled her eyes immediately. "Oh no." Mia laughed. "Don't start." Too late. Lily was already crying. "You deserve this." The simple words nearly broke Mia. Because Lily knew. She knew every struggle, every sacrifice, Every sleepless night, every tear. She had been there through all of it. The years of raising the triplets alone, the fear, the loneliness, the uncertainty, and now they had made it, together. Across the estate, Damien adjusted his tie for the 10th time. Jake laughed. "You've negotiated billion-dollar deals." Damien frowned. "This is harder." Jake nearly choked laughing. The truth was obvious. Damien Lancaster was nervous, terribly nervous. Not because Mia might say no, because she already had. Because today felt too important, too meaningful, too precious. For years he believed he would never have this: a wife, children, a future. Yet somehow fate had given him all three. "Dad," the triplets burst into the room. Now 4 years old, they looked impossibly handsome in their tiny tuxedos. Noah grinned. "We look amazing." Nathan nodded. "We definitely look amazing." Nico studied Damien carefully. "You look nervous." Jake laughed. Damien groaned. "Not you too." The boys immediately surrounded him. 3 tiny copies of himself. 3 miracles. 3 reasons he smiled every morning. His sons. The thought still felt unbelievable and wonderful. The ceremony took place in a garden overlooking a lake. White roses lined the aisle. Family and friends filled the seats. Even Ethan looked emotional, though he would deny it forever. The music began, everyone stood, and then Damien saw her, Mia, walking toward him. For a moment, the world disappeared. The guests, the flowers, the music, everything. There was only her, the woman who changed his life, the woman who gave him a family, the woman he loved with his entire heart. Tears filled his eyes. He didn't care who saw, not anymore. When Mia reached him, she smiled, and suddenly every difficult moment became worth it. The years of loneliness, the heartbreak, the mistakes, everything, because it led here, to this moment, to them. The vows were simple, honest, perfect. "I spent years believing I wasn't enough," Damien said quietly. His eyes never left hers. "Then you showed me I was wrong." Mia wiped away tears. "And I spent years believing I had to carry everything alone." Her voice trembled. "You taught me that I don't. Especially not Lily, who was crying enough for everyone." Finally, the officiant smiled. "I now pronounce you husband and wife." The cheers were immediate, loud, joyful. The triplets were the loudest of all. "Yay, finally, can we have cake now?" The guests burst into laughter. Damien laughed too. Then he kissed his wife. His wife. The words felt incredible. The reception was filled with dancing, laughter, and far too much cake. The triplets somehow managed to get frosting everywhere. Noah started a dance competition. Nathan convinced several guests to join him. Nico quietly stole extra dessert. Mia wasn't even surprised. As the evening came to an end, Damien stood on the balcony overlooking the celebration. The boys were chasing each other across the lawn. Jake and Lily were laughing together. Friends and family filled the garden. And Mia stood beside him. His wife, the love of his life, the woman fate had chosen for him. She slipped her hand into his. "What are you thinking about?" Damien smiled. "The doctor." Mia blinked. "What?" "The one who said I'd never be a father." She laughed softly. Damien watched the triplets running across the grass. His heart felt so full it almost hurt. 3 little boys, a beautiful wife, a family, a home. Everything he thought he could never have. "I think you would be very surprised." Mia laughed. "So would I." For a moment, they simply stood together, watching their children, watching their future, watching the life they had built. Then Noah's voice echoed across the lawn. "Dad," Damien smiled. "Here we go." The triplets came running, straight toward them, as always, and Damien opened his arms, because he would never stop being grateful for this, for them, for the miracle that changed everything. Sometimes life takes away what you expect, only to give you something even better. And as Damien held his sons close, while Mia stood beside him, he realized one simple truth. The greatest things in life are never planned. They are simply meant to be. Epilogue. 10 years later. "Mom, Dad, hurry up!" The shout echoed through the enormous Lancaster family home. Mia laughed as she watched 3 identical boys race down the staircase. Well, not exactly boys anymore. At 13 years old, Noah, Nathan, and Nico were officially teenagers, which meant the house was louder than ever, and hungrier than ever. "Mom," Noah complained, grabbing an apple from the kitchen counter. "Nathan ate my pancakes." Nathan looked offended. "I did not." "You did. I was protecting them." "From what?" "You." Nico walked past both of them. The pancakes were afraid. For a second there was silence. Then everyone burst out laughing. Some things never changed. Mia leaned against the counter and smiled. 10 years. 10 incredible years. Sometimes it still felt unreal. The struggling housekeeper who once worried about buying groceries now stood in a home filled with love, laughter, and security. Not because of money, because of family. The boys had grown into wonderful young men. Noah was adventurous, always chasing excitement. Nathan could talk his way out of almost anything. A skill Damien claimed definitely came from Mia. Mia disagreed completely. And Nico remained thoughtful and observant, the quiet genius of the family. A pair of strong arms wrapped around Mia's waist. She smiled instantly. "Good morning, husband." Damien kissed her cheek. "Good morning, wife." Even after all these years, those words still made her happy. He looked older now. A few silver strands decorated his dark hair. But somehow he was even more handsome than before, at least in Mia's opinion. "Dad," Noah pointed dramatically, "you're being romantic again." Damien rolled his eyes. "You'll understand one day." The triplets immediately groaned. "Please don't, not at breakfast, we just ate." Mia laughed so hard she nearly dropped her coffee. Later that afternoon, the family gathered in the garden for a celebration. It was Damien's birthday. Friends and relatives filled the lawn. Jake had graduated university years ago and now worked as an engineer. Lily was finishing medical school. Her childhood dream had finally come true. The entire family had grown, thrived, healed. As the party continued, Damien wandered toward the old oak tree near the edge of the property, the same tree where he often sat to think. A few minutes later, Mia joined him. "You disappeared. I needed a minute." She smiled knowingly that hadn't changed either. Sometimes Damien still liked quiet moments, especially on meaningful days. They sat together beneath the tree, watching their children laugh in the distance. The afternoon sun painted everything gold. Beautiful, peaceful, perfect. "You know what I was thinking?" Mia shook her head. "What?" Damien smiled. "The day I got that diagnosis." The word surprised her. "The infertility diagnosis?" He nodded. "I thought my life was over." Mia squeezed his hand. His gaze followed the boys running across the lawn. "I thought I'd never have any of this." The emotion in his voice made her heart ache. Even now, even after all these years, the memory still hurt, because it had stolen so much from him. Years he could have spent happy. Years he could have spent believing in himself. But then Damien smiled. A real smile. The kind that reached his eyes. But if everything hadn't happened exactly the way it did, his gaze shifted to her. "I never would have met you." Mia's eyes filled with tears. The only kind she cried these days. "I love you." The words came easily, naturally, like breathing. Damien kissed her forehead. "I love you too." A familiar voice interrupted them. "Dad." All three boys came running, just like they always had, just like they probably always would. "Mom, family picture. Everyone's waiting." Damien laughed, then stood and offered Mia his hand. "Ready?" She smiled. "Always." Together they walked toward their family, toward the people they loved most, toward the life they built together. And as the camera flashed and laughter filled the air, Mia realized something. The greatest miracle wasn't the triplets, or the wedding, or even finding Damien again. The greatest miracle was that after everything they endured, they got their happy ending, and they lived it every single day.
Thank you so much for being part of this emotional journey. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. Your support, your love, your time, it means everything. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. As always, see you in the next one. Love, Maria.